Just yesterday, all seemed lost for Diddy. On the 13th day of the trial, the weight of the accusations was heavy: trafficking, coercion, alleged violence. Facing him were victims telling the unspeakable, a tense jury, and a public opinion increasingly critical. The verdict seemed almost inevitable, yet a name suddenly rekindled hope for the fallen mogul: Donald Trump, the 45th President of the United States, back in power and more unpredictable than ever, dropped a bombshell. When asked about Diddy's case, he declared he was willing to review the facts and consider a possible presidential pardon. Just a few words, but enough to shake the already fragile balance of the trial. It wasn't just a passing comment in an interview. It was a signal, a warning. Trump didn't merely comment. He opened the door to the idea that, despite the gravity of the accusations, Diddy could escape federal justice thanks to his intervention. For many, it was a thunderclap. Diddy, once a symbol of success, now mired in scandal, could see salvation come from the highest office in the country. Since the trial began, the hearings have revealed a chilling series of testimonies. Former collaborators, personal assistants, and close associates of Diddy have taken the stand. Their stories matched an environment of fear, manipulation, and systematic abuse. Mia, Diddy's former personal assistant, delivered harrowing details. She described a man obsessed with control, capable of threatening late-night calls, devastating verbal abuse, and constant intimidation. A trip to St. Barthélemy, a phone thrown against a wall, a passport confiscated to prevent her from fleeing. A daily life of terror masked by a veneer of luxury. On the stand, Mia spoke of direct threats she received, her failed attempts to leave Revolt Films, and her spiraling anxiety attacks. She described a feeling of imprisonment, a forced submission to a system where loyalty was bought with silence and suffering. But it was during cross-examination that the hearing took an even darker turn. Brian Steele, Diddy's lead attorney, tried to discredit Mia by showing old Instagram posts where she praised her employer, highlighting the appearance of complicity. Facing these attacks, Mia stood firm. She explained that at the time, criticizing Diddy publicly was unthinkable. "I posted what was expected of me. It was the unwritten rule. You had to show the perfect life, even though in the shadows, it was a nightmare." The court also witnessed a shocking scene. Several jurors were seen discreetly laughing, exchanging mocking smiles while Mia testified, behavior deemed unacceptable by many observers, raising a burning question. How can a fair trial be ensured when the jury's impartiality is compromised? In the background, Diddy remained impassive, while some of his associates occasionally displayed barely hidden signs of satisfaction. As the trial tension peaked, an unexpected announcement disrupted the already fragile balance of the case. Donald Trump, the current president of the United States, publicly stated he might consider pardoning Diddy. During an impromptu press conference, when asked about the case, Trump responded in his usual blunt manner, "I'm not aware of all the details, but I'll review the situation. If Sean Combs is convicted and treated unfairly, I might consider a pardon." This announcement immediately set the media ablaze and shook court observers. Some see it as a purely political move. Others view it as a provocation or even an attempt to undermine the credibility of the federal justice system. This declaration raises even more questions considering Trump and Diddy's shared past, though they've been distant for years. Trump recalled their past interactions in New York social circles, but stressed that he no longer had personal ties to him. From the defense's perspective, the announcement was met with cautious optimism. While it doesn't change the immediate outcome of the trial, it offers an unexpected glimmer of hope. Even with an unfavorable verdict, a political escape route might open. But for the alleged victims, For women's rights organizations and much of public opinion, the prospect of a presidential pardon felt like a betrayal. Granting a pardon to a man accused of such serious crimes would be an affront to all victims of violence and abuse. Several organizations declared in scathing statements. Now, the question is whether Trump will turn this threat into reality, and what political and social repercussions it could provoke in an already fractured country. In the courthouse corridors, Trump's declaration had the effect of a silent earthquake. Though the courtroom remained outwardly calm, the atmosphere became thick, almost suffocating. Glances exchanged between lawyers, journalists, and even some jurors betrayed new nervousness. Far beyond mere words, the president's statement could indirectly influence the trial's course. Some fear that jurors, aware that a presidential pardon is possible, might feel relieved of responsibility. Others worry about the optics of an acquittal in the context of underlying political pressures. Public reaction was swift. Social media erupted in debate between those decrying a two-tiered justice system, where money and power seemed to trump truth, and those seeing Trump's words as a compassionate gesture toward a musical icon. The divide was stark. Protesters gathered outside the courthouse, brandishing signs, "Justice for the victims," "No one is above the law," while others carried pro-Diddy slogans claiming his innocence. Political communication experts agree. Trump, a master of media strategy, knows that by hinting at a pardon, he's putting additional pressure on an already scrutinized trial. Some see it as a calculated move to appeal to African American voters or energize his base during an election year. Behind the scenes, Diddy's camp no longer hides its optimism. A source close to him reportedly said quietly, "No matter what the court decides, the president is with us." But for Mia, the other alleged victims, and many activists, this presidential intervention is a slap in the face, a subtle threat to the very foundations of the trial. Beyond the media storm, an essential question arises. Can Donald Trump actually pardon Diddy? Under U.S. law, the Constitution grants the president broad power to pardon federal offenses. This means he can annul or reduce sentences for crimes adjudicated by federal courts. Diddy faces several serious federal charges, notably human trafficking and racketeering. So, theoretically, if convicted, the president could grant him a pardon. But there are limits. The presidential pardon does not extend to state-level offenses. Several states, notably New York and California, are conducting parallel investigations against Diddy. If state-level charges are brought, neither Trump nor any president could intervene. Thus, in an extreme scenario, Diddy could evade federal justice, but still face state-level prosecution and conviction. Moreover, a presidential pardon is never politically neutral. Granting such favor to a highly controversial figure in an election year would be risky, potentially triggering a political and judicial storm. Historically, presidents have used this power controversially. Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon after Watergate. More recently, Trump himself pardoned individuals linked to his circle, sparking outrage. But a pardon for Diddy, amid grave accusations of sexual assault and trafficking, would cross an unprecedented threshold. Another major unknown, the verdict. As long as Diddy is not convicted, the question of a pardon remains hypothetical. But Trump, by hinting at it now, plants a seed of doubt, expectation, and political pressure rarely seen in recent judicial history. If Trump were to pardon Sean Diddy Combs, the repercussions would be immediate and massive. For Diddy, a federal pardon would wipe out any federal convictions. In theory, he could regain his freedom without serving prison time for federal charges. However, a pardon does not equate to innocence. It doesn't erase the facts established during the trial or the damage to his public reputation. And it wouldn't shield him from civil lawsuits from alleged victims seeking damages. Politically, the move would bolster criticisms against Trump, already accused of abusing his pardon powers for personal or political reasons. Many would see it as an electoral maneuver aimed at courting a specific electorate or defying judicial institutions. Moreover, public opinion is extremely sensitive to issues of sexual violence and human trafficking. A pardon would be seen as a slap in the face to victims and human rights advocates. State-level prosecutions would remain unaffected by a presidential pardon. Local prosecutors, particularly in New York, known for their tenacity, could continue to pursue criminal charges under state law. In the music industry, reactions would likely be mixed. Some, out of loyalty or interest, might welcome what they would frame as a second chance. Others would distance themselves, fearing the toxic effect of his return to the public and economic scene. Diddy's image, already deeply tarnished by the slew of accusations, would be hard to rehabilitate. Even free, he would remain associated with scandal, controversy, and mistrust. Brands, TV channels, and radio stations would hesitate to associate with a man seen by many Americans as a symbol of moral corruption. For many, the idea of Trump pardoning Diddy seems surreal. But on closer inspection, several factors make the hypothesis plausible. First, personal ties. Trump and Diddy shared moments in the 2000s, notably on Celebrity Apprentice. At the time, they had a cordial relationship of mutual respect and media opportunism. Trump even publicly called Diddy a good friend in 2012. Although they've since drifted apart, their past could influence the president's decision. Second, political opportunity. In the heat of the election campaign, Trump could see the pardon as a strategic move, presenting himself as a leader able to reach out to a major figure in African American culture, thereby boosting his fragile image with that demographic. Third, a message to opponents. Pardoning Diddy could also serve as a way for Trump to challenge his political and judicial enemies, showing he retains the final say, regardless of the media or accusations. Fourth, personal revenge. Some speculate Trump hasn't forgotten that many entertainment figures, including Diddy, supported his political rivals. Granting and then flaunting a pardon could place those same figures in an uncomfortable position, reminding them they now depend on his presidential magnanimity. Finally, short-term media gain. The Diddy case has captivated the public. Associating himself with a spectacular decision would guarantee Trump maximum media visibility at a critical electoral moment. If Trump did pardon Diddy, it would not go unnoticed. On the contrary, it would provoke an immediate shockwave. His supporters would applaud his ability to defy expectations and impose his will on a judicial system they view as biased. On the other hand, the public, already troubled by the heavy accusations against Diddy, would see the pardon as an insult to justice and to the victims. The decision would have profound diplomatic and social repercussions. In a fractured America, where debates on celebrity treatment, billionaire power, and victims' rights are intense, such a move would only deepen the divide. For Trump, the calculation is clear: capitalize on the scandal to strengthen his outsider image. For Diddy, it would be a dramatic twist in a trial threatening to destroy his empire. But for the alleged victims and those who still believe in impartial justice, it would be a brutal reminder that, sometimes, influence and power can sweep everything away. As the debates continue to shake the courtroom and the shadow of a presidential pardon looms, one certainty remains. Whatever happens, this case will mark a turning point, a moment when justice, celebrity, and politics collided head-on before the entire world.